Has John Kreese become truly heartless? Given the events of seasons 4 and 5 where both his best friend and former top student betrayed him, it's clear that he has one goal: go out fighting. With him rejoining the family that taught him everything, Miyagi-Do will easily face their biggest challenge yet. This is why Kreese is determined. Let's talk about his point of no return, his escape from prison, some interesting notes about his friendship with Terry Silver, and more. Let's recap what we know about Kreese so far. Since this is a continuation of my previous video, How Kreese is Transformed, I'm only going to recap the events of his arc in Season 6 Part 1. Feel free to skip ahead to avoid the recap, but be warned, you may miss some important details later on in the video. After performing instant transmission in South Korea, Kreese sees both Kim Da-eun and Kim Sun-young for the first time in years, making a case that Cobra Kai should enter the Sekai Taikai. To prove his worth, he visits a cave where Master Kim left his Yungjang-do and retrieves it after fighting a ghost from his past to learn an ultimate lesson. Eliminate whatever stands in your way between you and the prize. Kreese takes an interest in Kwon, seeing what he saw in Johnny Lawrence, and motivates him to put a purpose behind his anger. Realizing that they still need a female captain, John attempts to sway his female champion Tori Nichols, who rebuffs the offer at first. However, after not being in the right headspace after her mom's passing, she leaves Miyagi-Do and rejoins Cobra Kai, to the shock of Johnny and Daniel. Let's first talk about Kreese's journey to the point of no return. In a flashback to 1980, when Kreese and Silver leave for America, John decides to say goodbye to Kim Da-eun, but it's implied that he caused Master Kim to take notice of her hiding there as he begins to beat her with a stick. Kreese comes to her defense and voices his opinion to Master Kim about the circumstances of mercy. This was another integral part of his character that was shown to us, as even at this point, it's implied that he's not as hard on his students as he should be. Kim Sun-young states that he does not know the lesson and will remind him for his whole life, which, as I mentioned in my What You Missed in Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 1 video, is a dark parallel to Mr. Miyagi's lesson about balance. Despite Kreese's best effort to block his master's attack, we see how brutal and quick Master Kim is for his age, even showing the same technique that Johnny used in the 1984 All Valley. However, before any further damage is done, Kim Da-eun comes to his rescue, and Master Kim agrees to train his granddaughter as she no longer fears him. This scene is important because of two things. Number one, this is the turning point that caused Kreese to fully embrace the way of the fist. Seeing the flashbacks up until this point after Kreese's battle with Captain Turner, we don't see anything that would cause him to change his ways until he disagrees with Kim Sun-young. This would circle back to the flashback Johnny has in Mercy Part 2, where even then, assuming this was either 1979, the year that Lawrence discovered Cobra Kai as seen in Quiver, or 1980, where the flashbacks with Kreese and Kim Sun-young took place, Kreese would no longer compromise his teachings, another point I'll talk about in this section of the video. The second reason why this scene is so important is that it solidifies why Kim Da-eun and Kreese had a strong relationship. As I speculated in my What Will Happen in Cobra Kai Season 6 video, Kreese at this point only had the Kim family as allies to fall back on, specifically Kim Da-eun. The fact that he not only saved her, but as a result got Master Kim to finally train her is why she's so loyal to him. In the present day, Kreese again tries to make a case for Master Kim so they can enter the Sekai Taikai, but again is met with resistance both physically and verbally. However, Kreese makes a good point that if he was such a bad teacher, then Johnny Lawrence shouldn't have been able to defeat any of his students. To prove his worth, Kim Sun-young entrusts him with the task of finding his father's Yungjang-do, which John runs into some obstacles, primarily a snake bite. According to sage journals, while rare, it is possible to have visual hallucinations from a snake bite, which would explain why Kreese experiences this, namely the sounds of his time in Vietnam and seeing both Terry Silver and Johnny Lawrence. Realizing that he has complicated his teacher's lessons for Johnny as he did in 1980, Kreese defeats the weakness in his way. It's noted that while not quite the same technique, Kreese uses a similar punch to the silver bullet and aims for Johnny's solar plexus and uses the patented Cobra headbutt. Fittingly, he gets Johnny into a chokehold again, though this time snaps his neck to eliminate the enemy standing in his way. When encountering the snake again, John is successful in retrieving the Yungjang-do, implying that he was quicker than the Cobra, bringing back the head as proof. Kreese's new attitude carries over into Sleeper, as he teaches a lesson when talking about how Johnny lost to Daniel at the 1984 All Valley. There's only one way to defeat an opponent who fights with heart, by being heartless. You need to harness all that hate inside of you. Despite some of the positive progression he made in both seasons 4 and 5, John falls back into the similar lessons he taught to Johnny, Tori, and Robbie by channeling their hate. To put together the final piece of the puzzle, he even manages to manipulate Tori by planting seeds of doubt about how she will always be second fiddle. One thing to note is that there's a unique effect on one of Kreese's lines in this scene. I'm not sure if it was done on purpose in post-processing for effects, or if it was to improve the audio quality, but the words, "they'll invite you in," have a guttural or almost dark conscious vibe about it, which adds to the scene. I would also like to point out that Kreese would know about the team needing captains, as in Bad Eggs, he knew about Silver's plan entering the Sekai Taikai, and most likely found that information from the magazine Silver brought him. By returning to the roots of his master's teachings, this Kreese will nearly be unstoppable. There's a popular theory I'd like to also address in this video. Was Kreese responsible for the death of Tori's mother? I'm gonna say no. A lot of people point to the fact that Grace Nichols had her fist in a clinch, which some people would point to as foul play. However, as we see, she was clinching Tori's magic jewel, as it's shown in a flashback that the two had a very close relationship, and Tori gave this to her when she was young. The way her fist clenched up would actually be what's called the pugilistic attitude, which is a post-mortem artifact resulting from the effects of heat on the muscle protein, denaturation, and dehydration. At the hospital, it's revealed that the cause was a pulmonary embolism, which is a condition in which one or more arteries in the lungs become blocked by a blood clot. Now typically, a pugilistic attitude is found commonly in fire or burn victims. However, this is also caused by both dehydration and denaturation, which can cause blood clots. So ultimately, Tori's mom passed because of her medical issues, not because of foul play. Now for a second, let's throw all of that out the window and say Kreese was responsible. If he would go that far, why not just attack Johnny and Daniel directly, then win the tournament? He was willing to fight them both in Season 3. Given the fact that he's able to slip in and out of countries to evade the authorities, I think he most likely would have done that instead of taking out Tori's mom just to get her daughter to join the Cobra Kai dojo. Granted, yes, Kreese is more ruthless now than ever, but had he gone that route, it could have easily backfired on him, especially if the hospital found evidence of foul play. This is something that's been on my mind, and I'm sure on a lot of your minds too. How does Kreese evade the authorities and go to whichever country he pleases? I thought that this was something that would have been explained in part 1, but hopefully they can do this in either part 2 or 3. Logically, the only thing I can think of is that Kreese was able to stow away on a ship, as he would have easily been discovered if he tried the same tactic with aircraft. This must mean that John must have planned these trips ahead of time, given it would take days to travel by boat. The only other explanation I can think of is if he had help from the Kim family, at least with the trip from South Korea to the US to convince Tori. I doubt that Kim Sun-young would have Terry Silver money, but considering that, like Sato, he taught many American soldiers over the years and still has his hand in the dojang in the present day, there's bound to be at least some sort of financial help they can afford to Kreese. Otherwise, we can only speculate and see if this is elaborated on in other parts of the season. Though I've talked about this topic before in a few videos, it's worth mentioning the new insight we've gained with Kreese's friendship with Terry Silver. In the flashback, while Terry was also surprised by Master Kim's punishment of Kim Da-eun, he tried to stop Kreese from intervening as he felt it wasn't their place, even giving John a look when he becomes more vocal. When Kim Sun-young questions John about the circumstances for giving mercy, Silver notably looks angry at John for having said this. This will tie back to the confusion that he had for Kreese in party time, as it reminded him of the time that John talked about compromising the teachings of Master Kim. This also circles back to the hallucination and epiphany John has in the cave, realizing that he did compromise the teachings of his master, and all it did was cause him pain, fearing that he was too merciful for his students. As I talked about in my Why Terry Silver is Still Terrifying video, this scene would also tie back to my theory of Silver being jealous of Johnny. Lawrence is the reason they did not enter the Sekai Taikai, and the fact that Kreese showed mercy to Johnny shows that Silver knew Kreese was forgetting the way of the fist. I will say one thing I noticed is that when noticing his friend being beaten down, Silver seemed afraid and did not step in to help the man who saved his life, despite saying that he would owe Johnny his whole life. And remember, this was before the events of Karate Kid Part 3, so there was no bad blood between them yet. Here are my final thoughts on Kreese and what we could expect to see from him in the future. Given his new epiphany and returning to the roots of no mercy, this will easily be the most ruthless version of John Kreese that we'll see yet. From what little we saw of him in Cobra Kai Inside the Dojo Part 1, we see a shot of Kreese looking concerned at something, and it's hard to say if it's Johnny Lawrence as we see him in the next shot or something else. I suspect that Terry Silver will still show up at some point, and I'm still hoping for a showdown between Silver and Kreese. Only time will tell how things will play out for John Kreese and the rest of Cobra Kai Season 6. Another famous student of Kim Sun-young is Terry Silver. He fully embraced the teachings of no mercy in Seasons 4 and 5, and showed his own ruthlessness by betraying his best friend.